everyone.
Hi, can you hear me? I don't know if my mic is working.
Yeah, Yovi, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Kimberly.
Hi there, Kristin.
Hi, Lyndall and Nikki.
This room got a makeover, right?
Yeah, we played around with some of the different environments last time.
This environment amazing. Is this environment only available in like the pro plan or the paid plan or something?
It might be. Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause I didn't see it. I was looking under new environments, and I didn't even see this listed. So
Oh, weird.
yeah.
Well, they gotta make some premium content for the paid users.
Money somehow. This is really
Right.
a fun one.
Yeah, he looks so fancy.
So we'll just give folks a couple of minutes to join up.
So those of you who haven't been here before, this is like best thing to do in this environment. Run around. Why it's like not able to. Oh, there we go. Whoa, makes me feel so dizzy.
I'm checking out what new stuff they've got in the Sketchfab library on here. If you go to add content, you can check that out. They've got this cool shiny Vespa. So it's really neat that it has lighting effects on it like that. So when I rotate it, you can see the light kind of glint off of it and change. Very cool. Looks really realistic. At least on the desktop. I don't know if it looks that good on the headset.
Oh, that is nice. That was just in Sketchfab?
Yeah. It's kind of small though. I didn't realize it was that small. I guess I could. Seems like it would be kind of that size for here. Oh. No, that's also in the middle of the sky. So sometimes on the desktop it's hard to tell like the scale of something like this. That looks a little bit better. Eh. I don't know if you can sit on it in the headset. I doubt it. I don't think it's that interactive, unfortunately. We've got a couple folks joining. Hey Jay, hey JC, hey Anissa. If I'm saying that right, sorry, feel free to correct me if I'm not getting your name pronunciation right. Wow, this one's interestingly unique. Looks, at least in the image, very realistic. Cool, cool. Some of these I think I wonder if they've been created with LiDAR imaging or scanning. But I am I think we can probably start to get on topic. I like to check out all the 3D models that they've got going on in the library here. But yeah, today's topic is soft skills for VR. Has anybody had an opportunity to explore some soft skills training programs in VR that they want to talk about? I've seen some. I haven't tried it, but I've seen one for like presentation skills, working on presentation skills. So you get to practice giving your speech in front of a room full of people.
Most I've seen has been when Kristin did her presentation with the Talespin group. Looking forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, I hope so. I know, Talespin does a lot of really cool stuff in that space, and working on leadership development and other business-related soft skills. I'm missing some audio icons on some folks, so if you're speaking and you think no one's hearing you, that might be the case. If you want to just put in the chat if you're having any problems, let us know and we'll try to troubleshoot.
There is a company called Mersion that focuses on that a lot. I haven't had a chance to try out a lot of their examples, but I've seen, like videos of their different things that they offer there. So I think they're probably one of the most well-known companies for soft skills, specific training, I'd say. At least that I know of.
Is that Mursion? Is that? I feel like I've seen it, but I don't know for sure if I'm.
Were you all able to hear me, by the way?
I can hear you, Jay. Yep.
All right.
Is Mersion, is that Mursion?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, cool. Huh. Yeah, I've seen their name floating around, but I don't think I've seen any specific examples. And folks, I did notice when I popped in today that the mute button is in a new place, or unmute. So you do kind of have, I think, with the little, if you're on the browser at least, in the top right, there's the three dots, the ellipses menu button. You can expand that, and then there should be a mute unmute option there. And I believe the keyboard shortcut is M. Yeah, it just tested that out. So
Hi, can you hear me?
I think we got two of you at once. Awesome. That's great. I think I heard Kristin. And
Hi.
Hi, Kristin. Lindahl, I think maybe that was you.
Yeah, thanks for the call out. I have to get out the mute thing after you called it out. Cheers.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's always fun when they move stuff around and change the interface on you without warning, right? I'm not in
settings. Just push M.
Yep, you can just push M to mute or unmute. I'm not sure what the headset situation is. So if I don't know, Kimberly, is the interface?
It's still the same in that you can tap the floating menu and you see the mute or unmute, or it's above you sometimes. Like I can see it sometimes floating overhead, although not now. I can't seem to access things like Sketchfab when I'm in this environment. Like all of my stuff and those buttons have been disabled.
Huh.
So the only thing I see is mute and then the three dots. Participants and part, which I guess means I can unlove the space if I want.
Huh. I wonder if maybe the kind of
maybe they disabled it.
Maybe the developer settings or just kind of editing settings, I guess, or object settings are limited on headset versus
could be
browser. It's been a while since I checked.
Can the rest of you who are on, those of you who are using keyboard, do you have the ability to import things from like stuff and Sketchfab objects?
So I'm able to do it on the browser, but I'm also a host of the space, so that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, I was wondering if a regular participant, if I was on a keyboard, not that I need to import stuff.
But it would be fun if everybody could.
It's always fun, yeah. I was actually looking around on Sketchfab to see what new things they had today. There's some good stuff. My favorites are when they have the objects that move around, like the animated things. I didn't see too many of those this time.
One thing I don't see on the browser that I did see the last time I was in headset was they have some new drawing tools. So you can use like I guess a 360 marker and create little 3D sketches.
Oh, that's
kind of fun.
Yeah.
What other interesting applications for VR for soft skills have you guys seen in action? I know that example from Talespin. I will try to find it and put a link in the chat where you are talking to the guy who's kind of irate, and I think it's your job to fire him. That one I kind of keep going back to. in my mind when I kind of think of these things. I feel like that was pretty impactful. Um,
Were you able to actually play that with a VR headset, or is that only available by viewing it on desktop? Because I don't think I actually have played through that.
I saw a video of it, so it wasn't like a live experience that I got to try, but
Oh, okay.
I'm sure
I
Kristin
guess
has tried a couple
that
of
was a
them.
question I had for Kristen, because there was one point where I did try to access the VR version of Tailspin in my headset, but then it looked like immediately they wanted a passcode. So it looked to me that was only for people who are actually using the application.
So it looks like it's at this address here. There's, I think, the option to watch the video and also read about the study that they did with PwC. So I think there's clips of that simulation in the video at the top that they link to at the top. I'll be really curious to see how these types of programs change and evolve when there's these new developments coming out in AI, and what that can, maybe the combination, the integration of AI chatbots and VR, so you have a little bit more maybe unscripted experience with some of those tools and actually talking instead of choosing a response. Like,
Yeah, that I saw something that the convey the CEO had given a demonstration about that, and it was incredible. I mean, it kind of looked like a game, like the way the Tailspin interaction was, but it was all being produced live as you were talking to it. That was pretty amazing.
very cool. Has anyone heard of any companies using AI integrated with VR yet?
Hi, can everyone hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you. So sorry for the technical issues on my end. It was picking up a different microphone that I couldn't find. But yes, I have been hearing the conversation so far. And back to the Barry demo around firing someone, that is actually only a demo that we use to sort of show the affordances of having these really difficult conversations with folks in VR. So that one, yeah, is not really released on our off-the-shelf library, but you are right, Kimberly, those who, you do need a subscription to access the library and play the virtual reality modules that are within our off-the-shelf library. Mm-hmm. So that password is needed, unfortunately. I'm curious, and I might have missed some of this conversation while I was coming in and out of the room, but I'm curious what types of soft skills, people think would be advantageous to learn in the VR modality.
I've been really curious about like using VR for cognitive behavioral therapy, like things to help, with anxiety or, maybe I guess public speaking can kind of somewhat align with that, or at least, be an exercise in that type of program, but something, maybe more like psychologically therapeutic applications. I don't know that I've seen anything like that though. Not that I can recall.
Yeah, as Nikki mentioned, that's definitely related to XR Health. We have a narrative designer on our team who was really interested at one point, like bringing to life CBT in some of our modules. That didn't unfortunately go through, but I am definitely with you as to that could be a really impactful type of experience, and experiencing that in sort of a different modality could be really effective. One of the things that I tried to experiment with early on was recreating there's this psychology experiment where you sort of like pass the cyber ball to like one other person in the team, or like there's three of you, and like the ball gets passed, but it never gets passed to you, and it's this it's like a social isolation psychology experiment, and I wondered if that could be replicated in VR, and what sort of social ramifications that might have on the way in which someone chooses to interact with these folks in conversation. That's sort of just like a side personal experiment that I wanted to do. I didn't get super far into it, but I do have the basis of that type of experiment. But I definitely feel like this modality is so powerful in replicating some of those types of health or social psych types of circumstances.
Yeah, I just Googled Nikki, I see that actually xr.health is a website. It's a business that provides that type of training. I guess Amelia by XR Health, and they have a bunch of courses that they offer. It looks like, but I wonder. I'm not sure if it's something that you can access as an individual, or if you have to go through a clinician to experience these. I'm not sure. I will definitely look more into that. That's very cool.
Yeah, like my understanding of it is that it's kind of like it's something that you can either pay for out of pocket, or I think Medicare also covers it. And basically what will happen is like they'll match you up with like a telehealth therapist, and they'll set up a headset for you depending on what your need is, whether it's like you need help with behavioral skills for someone who's on the autism spectrum, or maybe you need, you're going through physical therapy because you're recovering from something, and they'll set your headset up with all of the apps that are relevant to what your needs are, and then they'll send that to you along with like instructions, and you'll work with your telehealth therapist and with whatever programs are set up on your headset to, work on whatever your issue is.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I believe I'll put their website in the chats. Start.xr.health. Looks like. There is another one. I guess I could kind of apply under soft skills. There is, and I've downloaded it. It's another one of those things that I've downloaded and haven't tried yet. There is a blindness simulator on the Quest library. I believe it's free. It's called Notes on Blindness. And yeah, that sounds like a very unique VR experience to me. I was always curious about it, but has anyone tried that before?
I haven't tried it, but I do know someone who did, and they said it was a very impactful experience.
Really? Yeah. That's what I've heard.
I mean, just imagine how your empathy for folks who have some sort of blindness can increase from being in their shoes, you know? It sounds really
Exactly.
impactful.
Exactly.
I could see really, having that sort of training be utilized for like public service, for like police or fire response or emergency response, as well as like, social workers and therapists
Hmm.
and those who work with, uh, disabled or blind or, communities that, might need a little bit of extra empathy when people, otherwise, cannot even fathom what they might be experiencing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, talk about perspective taking. I once experienced this VR module that was, well, I guess it was actually 360 video now that I think about it, but it was from Planned Parenthood. And you were in the shoes of someone who was walking into the Planned Parenthood building for, a probable abortion. And then there were anti-abortion activists like kind of screaming in your face as you were like there experiencing it. And it was a very like emotional experience, just sort of being on that end and having people speak to you in a certain way firsthand.
Hmm. I can only imagine. That's actually kind of what really drew me into XR, because like I'm a e-learning designer, but I've always just worked with your normal 2D type stuff. And maybe about a year and a half ago, I got to design a program for the King Center with Dr. Bernice King for a program they have called Nonviolence 365. And it was like sort of, maybe more like 2 years ago, because it was not too long after the pandemic. And so normally what they would do is they'd go to whatever location they needed to, whatever organization was looking for that kind of training. And they just physically go there and do it in person. But then after the pandemic, they were like, well, we need other ways to get this training to people. So I work for Ernst & Young, and we put together a course for them um, that would offer this training online. And about around the same time that I was working on that, I also ended up getting my first Oculus Quest. And there's an app on there that's called Driving While Black. And it's basically kind of about the Green Book and people's experiences back then. And then there's also a really great part where you are sitting in a diner with the interviewer, and they're interviewing Tamir Rice's mother. And it's just very impactful sitting across from her and listening to her story. And I was just thinking, wow, like the thing that we just built for Nonviolence 365, which is all about empathy, compassion, the beloved community, I can only imagine what kind of impact bringing some of this training into an immersive experience could do. And so that's why I got very interested in this, because there's nothing quite like, I think, a VR experience that is crafted well and meant to elicit empathy for someone who, for people who you may not, be able to otherwise understand the experience that they've gone through.
Yeah, I think Traveling While Black was a really good example of that. I think we did a demo of part of that in one of the past meetups, but it was, I think, last year sometime, might have been a while ago. But I'd like to see more like that, and there probably are, especially now with Quest implementing the app lab, so more people are able to get their VR experiences, like, out there and published, and not necessarily like in the Quest library, which is kind of a rigorous process to get accepted into, I hear. If anybody is curious about the app lab, I know that Leslie Early would be a good person to reach out to on the Slack channel. She's published some of her work there.
Cool.
So if you're curious on how to do that. I know that Traveling While Black was also a 360, so it wasn't a full, or it was like a 3 DOF experience, not a full 6 DOF. So most of the footage, as I understand it, was shot with a 360 camera, which, you can build that kind of thing, I don't want to say like super low budget, but because you'd still, need to, write scripts and hire actors and find environments to shoot and kind of organize your whole experience. But, or, depending on what the content is, if you're interviewing people, identify and find those people. And, but, stitching together that 360 footage into kind of like a virtual reality movie, sort of, that you can, you're kind of a silent participant of. I feel like that's very accessible to people, with 360 cameras being, very much a consumer level product now.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by the different ways that you can approach sort of creating these experiences. Like maybe a few days ago, I went on a world hop in Horizon Worlds with Ruth Diaz of Liminal XR, and she brought me into one of these worlds that is, I guess it's focused around HIV awareness, and was sort of, I think, built for, there was a community member who had HIV, and once he kind of came out with his story, people started coming up to him and asking him a lot of questions that ultimately kind of became uncomfortable. So this was sort of a space where he could send them and be like, here, this is where you can get your answers and learn more. And one of the things that I really loved about this world was that some people created sort of like art installments that were just based around their experience. And one of the ones that I got to go into, it basically is just like a dark black space, and all there really is in there is like white text, that sort of like just paragraphs of white text that go out in space away from you. And so you have to kind of basically walk through the story. And this person's story was about the loss of their father to HIV AIDS, and how they lost them when they were at a young age. And the family was sort of ashamed and didn't tell them that that's what their father had passed away of. So afterwards, when they found out, they just had all these questions, and that they wished that they could have asked their father, and a lot of regret. And so it was crazy how just like a black space with nothing but just white text telling the story in little chunks, as you walk through it and read each paragraph, it just becomes more and more impactful. And once you get to the end of the first part of the story of like sort of what was going on with their father and how the family wasn't being forthcoming about what the issue was, then you sort of just turn 90 degrees to the right, and there's another path to follow. And this path is a little bit more colorful, but still in this black space. And this part describes the questions that they had for their father if they would have had the opportunity to talk to him about this. And let me just tell you, by the time I was done with this experience, I mean, I was in tears, and I forgot that since I had a Quest Pro on, I forgot that there's like, facial tracking and everything, so I couldn't even hide it. But yeah, I mean, before I experienced that, I had no idea that something like you could experience something like that in Horizon Worlds. And I also think it's cool that when you created it, when they approached Ruth and said that they wanted to do this, they were like, I'm not a creator. I don't make art, or I don't even know how to make anything in this space. And yet they ended up making something, even as simple as it was. It's still, I mean, I just was empathizing so deeply with their experience that, I mean, it just took me 10 seconds before I started tearing up, and I was a mess by the time I was done.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That sounds like such an incredibly powerful and emotional experience. And it's interesting how such sort of a simple design, as you say, could add to the reverence of like the message that's being delivered there. Very interesting.
Totally. Yeah. Like it actually, I have so much more respect for Horizon Worlds, because I think it's easy to kind of like, when you see the fidelity of other apps, you're like, oh, like that's really simple. And like people like to like, kind of, compare meta avatars to like these Ready Player One avatars and everything. And that just really drove home for me that you do not need to have these high fidelity graphics and special effects in order to have the impact that you're looking to have. And if anything, I felt like having that would have been a hindrance to my experience. And also it would have prevented this person from being able to create what they made, because they were so afraid to even approach it. But then once they started playing around in Horizon World, since it's something that's so approachable and engaging to create in, like they just went from there.
Is that world easy to discover?
I'm not sure. I've never done world hopping in the world, so I don't know if it's like a world that you have to get special access to that she took me to, or what. But I mean, I would love to get to explore it more at some point, because there were other art installations in that world. And then she took me to some other worlds too that also had me in tears. I was a believer by the time I was done.
Yeah. It just makes me think about the storytelling aspect and how oftentimes if we can display and tell a good and empowering story, just really the impact it can have on the lasting impact it can have on someone. I'm sure you'll remember this particular experience, in the coming years.
Oh, absolutely. Like I definitely won't forget that one at all. And there was another one that she took me through that someone who had experienced domestic violence created. And they also said that they didn't feel like they were a creator. They didn't know where to begin. But it honestly was just one of the most beautiful and impactful experiences that I've been through. And this one was like a lot more detailed. But the whole thing was just so moving, and I'm like, I just want more people to know about this and understand like that you can use it in this way. And I don't know, like now I want to like shut down the haters who are like, oh, that looks like The Sims or whatever. It's like, what, you can actually do a lot with something that looks like The Sims.
Right, and with like very authentic expression. It seems like that is what truly moved you in experiencing that world.
Absolutely. And I could feel that the person who created this was just feeling more and more free as they created more and realized what they were capable of creating, like, because the very beginning of it is very basic. That also starts off with just, basically a black screen and just a little, trigger warning, flamer, and then before you know it, you're kind of just going through these different spaces that represent different stages that they went through as they were leaving that abusive environment. And I mean, honestly, just like things like color were impactful. Like there would be a point where you're in a cave and there's no color to it and the walls just have these questions on it, and I instantly understood, okay, this is the point where they've now escaped their abusive situation, but they feel lost. And I didn't even need to read the words to know that they feel lost now. And then as you travel through that, you go into a space that looks like the same caves, but now there's color to the rocks. And now the words on it, instead of being questions that represent a feeling of being lost, now they're finding answers, and they're also asking questions about being curious about their journey ahead. It becomes more positive. And by the time you get to the end, you're basically in this like very bright, colorful rainbow world with big words that say, I forgive you at the top. And they just have all of these offerings for people who've gone through the experience to celebrate with them. And I'm just like, all right, I am never going to say a bad thing about Horizon World again. I'm sold.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's so interesting to think about, and thank you for sharing, because it's like, wow, what did you learn from that, especially about design? Like design doesn't need to be complex, and we can use color to communicate feelings of, either despair or hopefulness. It just sounds so insightful hearing you and thinking about how we might even apply, like how can I apply that to my practice? And I think the use of color is fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm a UI and user experience designer, and this person wasn't. They were terrified of even starting with like they just started with like a little purple flower is what Ruth had them start with. And it grew from a purple flower to this entire world that brought me through an experience. And I'm like, okay, I could see everything that they were doing. And I don't even know if they were conscious of things like UX or UI and how those things impact what, the person going through the experience is going to get. They just were able to translate what they had in their heart and their mind into this virtual environment. And it was so successful just because it was, I guess, so genuine.
Yeah, and it seems like they really did communicate their message, because it seems like, it prompted a feeling like awareness and empathy in those who experienced it. And I feel like oftentimes that's where we start with virtual reality, right? Like thinking about the affordances, we tend to want to, or like really the most powerful are the ones that are most visceral and emotional and spark really like uncomfortable feelings in us. So yeah, it's super powerful.
I'm curious if anyone has tried, I think you all were mentioning earlier about like using conversational AI and, how some people are using that for training for like, for people who do interviews at workplaces or for the person who's being interviewed. I'm curious if any of you have tried that or if you maybe have some links that you can share.
I will say that we don't use it for interviews, but we have like most of our experiences are conversationally based soft skills training, because really that's where it appears, and that's what really we have a tool to be able to create these soft skills simulations that are between human to human. experienced in first person. We've been playing around a lot with generative AI and incorporating that within our tool for, eventual just talking to a virtual human without a pre-defined script. But right now we are kind of beholden to a pre-defined script, but I know on the horizon that more open-ended communication backed by some sort of large language model is on the horizon.
Very cool. So you feel like it will be capable of generating that kind of conversation, and it being not only effective but still like a safe space for someone to be practicing those skills in?
I'm definitely confident that we'll eventually get there with the technology. I've been doing a lot of R&D research around in that particular space and prompt engineering, those types of elements. And so definitely it is like we're already using large language models to help create our current scripts, but I think eventually the technology will definitely be there where it could be more free form, but probably still on rails as it pertains to like the goal of the conversation. Because I think that's where there's a lot of risk, right? If we're unable to, if we just sort of let loose and we're unable to constrain where the conversation's going.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. How
Kristin,
easy that
to
is.
ask you a question. When I had attended the seminar that you guys did online from Talespin, somebody mentioned that you could go put a whole simulation together in 30 minutes instead of 3 months. It was 30 minutes or some kind of a claim like I don't know if that was the exact time frame. Can you when you said that, were you just talking about the technical part of it? Or were you actually talking about somehow going from we've just arrived at your company and somehow we're going to assess the needs and all of that? I mean, what exactly was that 30 minutes? What did that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question because I know that was a little bit unclear. That primarily includes the narrative writing portion, I would say. Assuming we already have learning, the learning objectives and sort of know what we're already doing, I think from I wouldn't say from needs analysis and the full discovery, I'd say we know what our target learning objectives are and the behaviors that we're then designing for. And then now we can create the entire script and put it into the tool. But also doesn't include things like user testing or iterative revisions, but mostly, you can get a prototype up and ready to be tested and iterated upon.
Are you using a separate tool like ChatGPT to do the narrative stuff, or is that all done inside of I think it's called Copilot Design?
Yeah, we so currently in the last couple of months we've been using ChatGPT or other tools such as Bard or Anthropic to help with scripting and just narrative outlining in general. However, I know that there are efforts, and this is public on our website, so I'm not disclosing anything. There are efforts to incorporate more of that those features, those generative AI features directly within the tool. So you wouldn't have to go use external tools such as ChatGPT or Anthropic or Claude, sorry. But that's an excellent question. More to come on the horizon, and I feel like I'm very excited to see where the technology will eventually take us. I think we're not even a full year into the era of generative AI, and so I kind of feel like it's just beginning.
I think it will really transform how we interact with VR, but it might take a year or two to get there and, really see some strong examples of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you because, it's still like Gen AI still hallucinates, and I feel like there's a lot of sort of fine tuning and just confidence we need to build with the tool and the outputs before things really go public with some of these features. It is exciting.
I feel like one of the other barriers, I suppose, to this kind of training is convincing people who currently design and develop for learning, soft skills learning, but they do it for, websites or apps, convincing them that this is like a valid way of teaching people things about like this. So I work for Ernst & Young, and I'm in a department called the U.S. Learning Lab, and we used to be Noggin Labs before EY acquired us. And so the kind of training that we do, it's mostly kind of like conversation screens, multi-choice type things. And for years, I've been just ever since I got my first Quest in 2019, and then after what I saw the impact it could be with the King Center project that we worked on, I've been really advocating for the other designers that I work with to start just kind of getting their toes wet a little bit, just look at what you can do in XR, you don't have to go out and buy a headset, just give it a little look. And they are so resistant. And then everyone is also incredibly resistant about AI as well. I think partially because all of the talk of it stealing people's jobs. And then, I do think that especially our content creators, producers, I think that also they're a bit afraid that it will be able to do their job as well. Not kind of realizing how much direction it still needs in order to have the effect that you're looking for it to have. But anyways, I'm really hoping that there will be more advances and there will be more opportunities for people who currently design for 2D experiences to upskill and learn more about how to develop for 3D and immersive experiences, because I really do think that it's ultimately going to be a game changer once we're able to convince more people who are skeptical or just have no idea how effective it really can be and how engaging it can be.
Yeah, I truly believe that as well. I think AI has the potential to lower the barrier to entry for creating virtual reality experiences, right? It can really help upskill folks or even augment their abilities as they're about to create these types of experiences. So there's perhaps if it does lower the barrier to entry and maybe there's way more adoption, we're still going to need learning designers or narrative designers or, folks to be essentially managing the AI function rather, or as it's applied to designing these types of learning experiences. So unfortunately I did, the fear about, losing jobs, I think is absolutely valid because I think that's something we're already sort of seeing here and there. It's very concerning about folks feeling like their skill sets are becoming obsolete. But I do believe that the veil will be lifted, that those skill sets are still valid. We still need them. The right people need to be able to see that.
Yeah, I'm always trying to post in our designer chat and everything, just little things that can maybe make them feel a little less afraid, or also just kind of encourage them to be you don't want to just sit on this and put your blinders on and let it pass you by, because it is still, like you said, it is still a valid fear. But if you stay up to date on what's going on and you sort of invest a little bit of yourself in it, I think you can find ways that it can benefit you. And I think it also will help more people, ultimately for people as a whole, advocate for ourselves and our worth and our value, so that companies don't just go like, oh, easy solution, we're just going to use some AI, like just AI that. Because I can see that the things that we do in our department, I can see what we do really honestly in like the next 2 or 3 years not being as relevant, and companies wanting something more because of how fast everything is going. And so I kind of like want to encourage my coworkers to be like, you don't want to just sit with blinders on and then one day they say like, can you guys do this? And no one has any clue what they're talking about. And therefore, either they go elsewhere or our company decides like, well, we just need to acquire somebody new who can do that. Like we want to advocate for ourselves and say like, hey, guess what? We've been upskilling ourselves. We've been learning about how we can apply the things that we already do really well right now to a more immersive environment. And yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we are valuable. And so, yeah, I don't know. Fingers are crossed.
Exciting times ahead, for sure. I think it'll be a little bit of rediscovering the value of the skills that we have and how to apply them in different ways, and also continuing to learn and grow our skill sets.
Agreed. Yeah, totally. I do feel like it's like one of those really critical times where like us as designers need to pick up this this new tool, because it could be like a differentiating factor in what employers are looking for nowadays, which is it's a really interesting crossroads to be at.
I think it'll it even has the potential for us to branch out and specialize in even more different ways, right?
Right.
Some people might become more proficient with text generation and copy editing, and some people become more proficient with image editing and or image generation, and some with multimedia generation, with even tools that are coming out now like Daisy AI and InVideo. As those tools expand their functionality and exactly like you said, Kristin, lower that barrier to access. We're seeing now that you can ask ChatGPT to write the code for you when you're working on a VR project in Unity. So.
Yeah.
Really quickly, Tristia, when you were exploring the different tools, did you come across any kind of 3D avatar creator programs that you thought were easy to use, that would be kind of a high enough quality to be able to use that in a simulation?
Yeah, that's a good
not necessarily headset, but right, not necessarily using a headset, maybe something that could be shown on a screen. I mean, similar to actually what you guys do, Kristin. You guys obviously have developed the whole platform in-house, but are there some other tools out there that just a layperson could use just to kind of get used to creating?
To be honest, that wasn't, I wasn't sort of assigned to R&D, any sort of art aspects, but I'm happy to ask if our art team, because I know like they have been doing their own research on how we can, get more art assets. I know they've been really looking into environments But I will ask about avatars because I think that is a really,
I'd be curious
really
because
interesting
I
thing about.
experimented with just creating a picture in Avatar in Midjourney and then, using DID to make the mouth move. And you get this really huge uncanny valley effect. I think that like when I saw the Talespin demo, what impressed me was because you didn't make the characters look super realistic, I didn't feel uncanny valley when I watched your stuff. But a lot of the stuff I was creating with this Midjourney, photorealistic character, it was really weird, and they couldn't do any gestures; their mouth moved. So you're like, I like it wouldn't be good for soft skills training because you're so distracted by the weirdness of the avatar. So I'm looking for that platform. I haven't found it yet. Unless Beyond comes out with some kind of 3D generation thing.
So this might not be exactly what you're thinking. I know there is a tool that I linked to recently where you can create a 3D object from a 2D image, and I think I shared that in the resources channel maybe recently. But that getting mouth movements on that is another set of animations that would need to be somehow configured there. There's something I just found just Googling called Viverse or Viverse that you might want to take a look at. It looks like you can create some or maybe you have to kind of Google Viverse or character creator because it looks like it might have something there.
Okay, this starts with a V.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. Viverse. So
cool.
VI
I'll
verse.
check that out.
I'll check that out.
And also, if you're looking for like those characters with the animations like already built in for mouth movements and stuff, you can try some of the asset stores like Unity Asset Store, or even having them custom made. Just Googling that on my phone just now, it looks like there are even the freelancers who offer those design services on Fiverr. So you might be able to use Upwork or Fiverr or something to get some character designs if you wanted them like kind of customized.
Yeah.
Semi-related to the subject of asset creation, but not so much for avatars. But I do know that like a very like low entry tools for like prototyping for 3D and immersive experiences. I don't know if you've heard of ShapesXR, and then there's also Bezel. Those are kind of like, they can't do everything that Unity does. Often people take things that they make in Unity and will import them into that. But those are really cool tools. I've played around with them a little bit for, honestly, not even just prototyping, but also for actually just the creation if you're not trying to do something crazy high fidelity that you would otherwise use like Unity or Unreal to create. Pretty much anyone can jump into ShapesXR, which I think ShapesXR you can only use in a virtual environment with your headset. And then Bezel, you can use that in your browser or in your headset. So I would check those out. Also Spline. I've seen a lot of people using Spline to create 3D elements, and it can make some really cool stuff. So I'll put the links in the chat.
Awesome, thank you.
Gravity Sketch is another one, and ShapesXR is, I think, a little bit maybe even more user friendly than Gravity XR. But they're slightly different, I guess. Well, guys, it's been a great conversation. Y'all are welcome to stay and continue and chat as long as you like. But I do have to go and end the recording. But thank you all again for coming and for participating. Just a heads up, future meetup times will probably change after today. I'm going to try to get a Google poll out for some alternate options and just kind of see what works best for the majority of community members. So when you see the link to that availability poll come through, please respond. That would just help us out in finding an alternative time that works good for everybody. But we're going to have to meet a little earlier in the day. That said, y'all have a wonderful evening, and I will see you at the next meetup, whenever that is.
Amazing. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you have a great
conversation.
Yeah,
Bye for now.
definitely. And if you want to share any other resources that you mentioned today, throw a link in one of our Slack channels, and or if you find anything on VR for soft skills that you'd like to share. It's a big topic, and there's a lot. So I think we made the most of our hour.
Thanks. Amazing. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye, everyone.